All right. Ahoy, legendary listeners. You're listening to the Halo Effect podcast with Lauren Quellhurst, and we have the legendary Tom Evans on here today. I just wanted to quickly start with a quick introduction with a few announcements, a quick shout out to the amazing Andrew Logan, who has been following my stuff, and he's quite big in the network marketing industry. And I've been looking into all his stuff, and I have been kind of social stalking a few people, Tom being one of them as well. And yeah, Andrew's just been, really supportive, giving feedback. And I just thought I would shout out to him. And yeah, to you as well, Tom, for supporting me at the beginning of my journey, like we were talking about just before. I'd like to give you a little bit of a background behind how I came across Tom. And that was actually when I've recently moved in with my sister and her partner here in Western Australia. And we've been undergoing these huge Tony Robbins events. If anyone's ever done them, you'll know just how friggin' big they are. And they came across Tom with all of his content there. And I started looking into what Tom was doing and became really interested because his background is in health and wellness and coaching and personal development. And it's kind of like, it's like a male version of everything I want to do and everything I want to be. So I started kind of like researching his background, I guess. And what came out of that for me was that we've probably got a lot of common crossovers, more than I actually thought. So I will quickly tell you about him before I let the legend speak for himself. He's a personal trainer based in Perth, Western Australia, but his most recent venture is into personal development and coaching. And like I said, we share a lot of common interests in the fitness, health, and personal development field. And his ultimate mission is to help as many people as he can live a life that is state of the art, which is also the name of your podcast. And I'll put that in the show notes. So to get him on the path of achieving his mission, he initially started studying with a Bachelor of Science and a Bachelor of Commerce, but he realized that it wasn't helping him get to his mission as quickly as he'd like. So he started down the transition of his life coaching certification, which he'll complete, I think, in the close future. And I'm sure he'll correct me if any part of this story is wrong. So he really is interested in studying the daily processes and habits of the world's most successful people in their respective fields. And like I mentioned earlier, he has a podcast called the SOTA Process Podcast, which stands for the State of the Art Process Podcast. And it's very much just a part of adding value to his listeners. And here he talks about and interviews guests on the topics of fitness, mindset, and personal development. And through that, he plans to interview the top experts in these fields and discover the processes on how they became state of the art, as well as how we can implement such techniques into our own lives. I also saw on there, Tom, that you're a previous marathon runner that now wants to turn bodybuilding and physique competing, that you want to turn to that before again delving into ultra endurance sports like Ironmans and other ultra events later down the track. So if I've missed anything to your story or I've butchered it completely, please come in and just correct me.
But that was an amazing intro. Yeah, you've definitely done your research, I can tell.
I think I love writing and I love speaking so much, but I also like the whole thing of the halo effect. Like my sister calls me Law, so it's like, hey Law, and it's more like a conversation that I want to have with people, but it's also this mission to like shine light on people who I see shining light onto amazing topics. And I can see that you're doing such amazing work in what you do, and I'm just like, I don't want to butcher that. I want to just make you totally shine. And so knowing that we've got all of that covered, My favorite question, I guess, to ask about people's story is like, I think of life like a bit of a science experiment where, you know, we're the substance and whatever, and to create a new substance of, like, say, who you are today versus who you were before, we need a catalyst. And I just wanted to know what that catalyst was for you when you reached, like, holy shit, like, I want a new life kind of thing, or I want something else that is different to everything everyone else is saying. Would you be able to speak a little bit to that?
Yeah, definitely. I know the exact moment in my life where that was. I've actually got the date tattooed over my heart because that was the moment that my life changed forever. So it's it was a very dark day, but it was a very special day as well. I still look back at that day as the best day of my life, even though at the time I thought it was the worst, but now I realize it was the best, which is amazing what a few years down the line and a bit of perspective can do for you. But to cut a long story short, essentially I had just finished school. My dream was to be a professional cricketer. I wanted to play cricket for Australia. That had always been my dream since I was like 3 or 4 years old. And I thought, well, you know, I was playing in Perth at the time and then traveling a couple of times a week up to, because I grew up in Bustleton, so about 2.5 hours south of Perth. So I was driving out a couple of times a week for training and games. And once I finished school, I thought, well, if I'm going to make this work, I'm going to have to move to the big city. I'm going to have to move up and fully commit to it. And at the time, I wasn't quite where I wanted to be in terms of my cricket. Like, I was there and thereabouts, but I knew I was well behind. So I needed to seriously start making some gains on the players that were in front of me. And I thought, you know, I've got to move to Perth. I've got to give it a shot. And so I did that. Didn't really know what I was going to do in terms of uni or anything like that after school, because I just didn't have any other dreams or goals other than playing for Australia. So I moved up to Perth and I just have the worst run of form that I'd ever had in my life. I think I got 3 or 4 ducks in a row. So for those that don't know cricket that well, that's 3 or 4 scores of 0 in a row. So playing really, really poorly. And I felt like at the time I'd completely lost my identity. So at school, I was the smart kid. I was the sporty kid. And when you move to Perth and you don't really know anyone, because none of my mates moved up to Perth, they all stayed down south for their gap years. So I moved up, didn't really know many people. No one saw me as that person anymore. I didn't have that identity. And now my identity was completely lost. I didn't know who I was because I wasn't sort of getting that external validation of who I was and what I was. So I got to the point where I kind of had a bit of a breakdown after, again, a really bad day at cricket, and I was just lost as to who I was. I remember coming home from the game and sitting in my car and just crying and just going like, who am I? What is my purpose in life? What's even the point? For the past previous sort of 3 or 4 years, I'd been sort of battling a bit of depression here and there, which was probably heightened at the time as well. And that's the first time that semi-suicidal thoughts were crossing my mind. I was thinking, well, you know, if I don't have a purpose, what's even the point of being here? Just because I had no identity. I didn't know what I wanted to do. I didn't feel like my life was worth living at that time. And what felt like sitting in the car for 5 minutes was actually 2 hours. I'd been sitting in the car from about 7 p.m. to 9 p.m. And it wasn't until my mum phoned me that I snapped out of it. So I got a phone call from my mum. I thought, you know, I better pick this up. And the first thing she said was like, you know, how are you? I'm super worried. I haven't heard from you. Is everything okay? And I said, to be honest, no, I'm not feeling that good. And looking back at that, that was probably the best thing I could have said, because a lot of people will still bottle up their emotions and, you know, not speak out about these things. But I've always been really, really close to my mum, and still am. So, you know, I felt like I could share that with her. So I said, look, I'm not good. Explained my situation. And she basically said, well, look, I'm 2.5 hours away. I can't really, you know, walk you through this. You're going to have to do this yourself. But the first step you need to do is get out of the car. That's the number one thing you have to do right at this moment, is get out of the car, and you've got to figure it out yourself from there. So that was probably the catalyst moment in my life where I figured, okay, well, I've got to start getting my shit together. I've got to start doing something with my life that's different from what I've done before, because obviously everything I've done up to this point hasn't worked. So I decided, all right, I'm going to get out of the car. I'm going to set my alarm for 3 a.m. and I'm going to go straight to the gym the next morning. So I did that, smashed out a really heavy leg session, and then I decided, all right, this is actually pretty fun. This fitness stuff is pretty fun. I'm going to go straight to Jacob's Ladder, which, for those that don't know, I think it's a staircase of, I should know this number, I think it's 272 steps near Kings Park. So I went and did that a couple of times, and I was like, well, I've still got all this energy. I'm going to go for a run. I just kept exercising throughout the whole day. The whole next day I was just exercising, nonstop running, going to the gym. And I just remember, falling in a heap at the end of the day on my bed going, wow, that was so much fun. And I feel so much better about myself. And I thought, well, I don't know what my purpose is yet, but I know if I just keep doing that as much as I can and just exercising and going to the gym and working on my health and fitness, that's going to lead to something. So for me, that was the catalyst point where I went, all right, I've just got to exercise as much as I possibly can. And I've just got to have faith that that's going to turn into something.
Dude, I'm just, blown away by your whole story in general, but and I have so many questions just coming out of that it's like, I'm listening and I'm engaged, but I'm like, I feel like we'll need to sit down and just catch up in person properly. But the really awesome thing is that we kind of speak the same language with a lot of the Tony Robbins stuff. And what I heard from that, with how you got yourself out of that catalyst was one, you started with physiology, and then within that is the focus and the language. And I think where your mum was really amazing was the language that she used with you and helping you redirect your focus. And a big shout out to your mum though as well, because how amazing are mums? How the hell do they even know what's going on? You think that
she's amazing,
you don't understand, and then they pop in or they send a message and you're like, how we cut the umbilical cord years ago, how do you know what is happening right now? So my other question was around, were you someone who had cried through your depression previously, or was that crying in the car moment a really huge release of emotion for you? I'm just interested in with guys, because a lot of guys probably don't feel like it's okay to kind of cry.
Yeah, I'd say I've always been an emotional person, and I think that's probably due to my mum being an emotional person, and I've always been really closely connected to her. So I've cried throughout my whole life, essentially, the good times, the bad times, and even sort of, I guess, the depression sort of stuff probably started in 2016 when I was struggling a little bit at school in terms of just, not getting along with a couple of people. Cricket was not going so great at the time as well, ironically. That was when the state under 15 side was getting picked, and I knew, this was my chance to break through, and I just had, a horror season again. And there was a couple other things that sort of led to that. I think my parents divorcing at the time, not having a very good relationship with my dad. So it was just a number of different things. And there were multiple times when I'd come home from Perth after playing cricket on a Saturday and just sit in my room and just, cry myself to sleep, essentially. Not every week, but it was, thereabouts, because I wasn't really performing that well. So that was, I guess the bulk of it. Towards the back end of my schooling, I wasn't as bad. I was starting to feel a little bit better, probably just, excited for the future, excited to finish school. But as soon as I finished school and moved up to Perth with, I basically moved into a house with two people I'd never met before. I think they were both sort of late 30s, early 40s, one from Ireland, one from Macedonia, which was a pretty big step too. So I was kind of felt quite alone at the time. Didn't really feel like I had anyone that I could go to other than calling my mum over the phone. So there were definitely times there where I was crying. I wouldn't say every night, a couple of times a week, but it's definitely something I've done quite a lot in the past. And, I'm not afraid to hide that. I'd say I'm a very emotional person. So that's, something that's just a way that I express my emotions, essentially.
Yeah. And for those of you who aren't looking at Tom, it's you're a masculine looking dude. And I think it's so refreshing to have men who are comfortable in being able to say that, it's you crying all the time is probably not going to be overly attractive to someone or enjoyable to be around, but it's to actually know that that is a part of all of us, even I have a masculine energy that can come out when I'm, charged in a workout or whatever it is, or if I'm making decisions, it's like a little bit uncomfortable for me. But it's important to remember that men can, in their true essence, can be masculine, but they can also step into that emotive side. And it's okay, like, to just go like, I'm feeling really crap and I'm going to cry. Like, if there's something that someone can do for you, that's really great. But if it's just about letting you get that release, and it's like, it's amazing. Like, I actually just take my hat off to you. It's pretty cool that you can speak about it so comfortably. So yeah, thank you for sharing that as well.
My pleasure.
What else did I have in here for? Dude, I have so many questions.
Fire away.
And I feel like it was probably, oh no, this is what I wanted to ask you. So when you started the podcast, it was, wanting to inspire change for others. And it came through your own pain of developing this thing that's, a creation of such value to people. And I saw in one of the articles that was written about you is like, when you're depressed and stuff, not just you, but anyone, you kind of forget what you're passionate about or what you're interested in. And we're so lucky and fortunate today to have technology to find people on YouTube or to like Google things like, what's wrong? I mean, it can be like a real blessing or a curse, like depending on what you're Googling. Because yeah, pretty much anyone could have cancer today if they Google like a symptom. But I'm just wondering like who your person was. Like, do you remember having someone where you like came across them and you were like, holy shit, I want to be like this dude? Like, and do you still follow them today?
Yeah, it's funny you say that. There's a couple. So this would have been maybe 3 or 4 weeks after I sort of had that breakdown. I had the first opportunity to go home after moving to Perth a few months earlier. So the cricket season had finished and I thought, I've got a weekend free. I'm going to drive down south and see my parents again. So I remember Mum showing me a video that she found on YouTube by Prince EA. So if you guys haven't ever seen Prince EA, everyone listening probably has seen one of his videos. If you've got social media, you would have seen it. But go and search him on YouTube because he has some of the best spoken word videos out there. And I remember watching this one called Everybody Dies, but Not Everyone Lives. And just because it's all poetry, he's speaking in poetry. It's almost like a hip hop style vibe, but it's, the cinematics are amazing. And I remember watching that. I think I rewatched it about 10 times in a row before I put the computer down and just going like, wow, okay, this makes so much sense to me. And that was kind of my introduction to personal development. And then on my way back up to Perth on the Sunday afternoon, Mum said, oh, you should listen to this podcast I've been listening to. It was called The Building Better Humans Project by Glenn Azar. And at the time I was like, Mum, podcasts are for older people. Like, I'm 18. I don't want to listen to, that kind of stuff. Like, I don't read books. I don't listen to podcasts. Like, I'll watch a YouTube video, but, people my age don't do it. And she goes, no, just listen to it. It'll be worth your time. And I was like, oh, fine, whatever. And I got halfway to Perth, finished listening to my music. I was starting to get a bit bored of it. And I was like, you know what, I'll just chuck this on, see what it's like. If it's crap, I can just turn it off. And that was my introduction to podcasts. So I remember listening to that and going, wow, this guy is talking about some really cool stuff as well. He's, purely just talking about personal development. And that was sort of the first podcast I'd listened to. And then Mum had also given me a book called The Success Principles by Jack Canfield. So that was the first personal development book I'd ever read too, which they were probably the 3 people that were my first sort of introduction into that. And then after sort of, I guess searching on YouTube, social media, everyone kind of watches those motivational videos on YouTube and stuff. That's when I started to come across Tony Robbins, Tom Bilyeu, Lewis Howes, Jay Shetty, all these people that I look up to now and aspire to be like, Brendan Burchard, to name another one, all these people. That's when I started to go, oh my God, like this podcast world is amazing. This personal development books and everything, this is so this is life-changing stuff. And I remember starting to every single weekend I would go to Kings Park in Perth, and I would spend my whole Saturday and my whole Sunday there, just walking around and listening to podcasts. And I'd get through, 3 or 4 a day, if not more, hour-long interviews of different people. So I was starting to expand that network of people that I was listening from, because I'd hear one person interviewed on one podcast and go, oh, they've got a podcast too, I'll listen to theirs. And after a few months, I remember catching up with a few mates going, you guys have to listen to this stuff. Like, you need to listen to these podcasts and read these books and watch these videos. And everyone's going, oh, that's not for me. And I'm like, trust me, it is. Like, I wouldn't have thought that either. But once you get into it, and, none of them really listened to me. But, that's where I guess my passion came from, was going, oh my God, I can't believe how much of an impact this has had on me, and how this has changed my mindset and my perspective on life. I feel like I've got my purpose now. I feel like life's going so well. I'm starting to, improve exponentially day by day. And that's where my passion for sharing that with people came from. I didn't get a very good reception from it at the start. People my age weren't really all that receptive to it, but yeah, that's where everything started to stem from.
And like, with those people that you were expressing that like excitement through, are they still mates today? Or, how it's like we become a result of the top people that we keep ourselves around. Like, have they risen up to you, or have they naturally kind of fallen away? Like, man, you're crazy.
Yeah, it's an interesting one. So a lot of them, I would say, quote unquote, have naturally fallen away. There was a few that I had a little bit of conflict with, where this was the start of 2020. I decided to move out with a couple of guys from school that I hadn't seen in years. And I thought, I'd rather live with people that I know that I thought would be more accepting of me and who I am than the people I was with. I kind of felt a bit stuck in that house. Just because I felt like I was sort of stepping on their toes a bit. One guy, he was the owner of the house, and he was renting out his other 2 rooms to basically pay his mortgage off, and things were starting to get pretty serious with him and his girlfriend. So I thought, I just need my own space, and I need to let them have theirs. So I moved out with my mates, and it was good at the start, but after sort of the quote unquote honeymoon period was over, when I started to really knuckle down and start to do things, they were still partying every night and drinking all the time, and every weekend, big piss ups with the boys, as it's called, and all that sort of stuff. And I wanted my peace and quiet to be able to read my books, listen to my podcast, and work on future business ideas and things like that. And it pretty much got to the point where I was thinking, well, I've got to move out. Like, I can't be around these guys anymore. And just like you said, you become the people you're around. So I thought, I need to change this. And it got to a breaking point one night where I was working a part-time job that I'd worked for a couple of years, and I was just starting as a personal trainer at the gym. I got home from work at about 10 p.m. Still hadn't had dinner or a shower or anything like that, and I had to be up at I think 4:30 or something next morning for a client. So I already knew I wasn't going to have much sleep, and sleep is something that I value very, very highly. And this was a Wednesday night, and they're all drinking and partying, and they were going out of their way to keep me awake. They were purposely, being loud and coming to my room and waking me up just as I'd fall asleep and stuff. And I thought, no, that's the breaking point. I've got to cut these guys off. As much as I like who they are when they're, not under the influence of alcohol, they do it too often. I've got to cut them off. So I said to them the next day, guys, I'm moving out. I can't do this anymore. That sort of started a, bit of an argument between us all. And I was kind of saying, like, can't you guys at least understand where I'm coming from and, respect my decision, in that I'm trying to build who I want to be. And it's probably better for you guys as well, because you don't have someone that's saying, don't do all the drinking that you're doing. Like, I was being a bit of a party pooper for them, saying, cut it out. So, but they didn't really see it that way. And we've had a bit of a falling out, I guess. And I haven't spoken to many of them since. I'd be open to it. I'd be open to catching up with all those guys again, because I still do value them. But that's pretty much how my circle changed. And then I got to the point where I knew my stepbrother was kind of into personal development at the time. I knew another guy that was, and I said to them, I was like, look, I know you guys are looking for a third housemate. Can I come and join you guys? And we all moved in together, and it's been pretty much smooth sailing since. And then I've been able to just expand my circle with people such as yourself and Josh and other people through Tony Robbins and through other businesses, and even through personal training and things like that. I now feel like my peer group, everyone's older than me and everyone's almost doing things that I'm aspiring to do anyway. So I always like to be the dumbest person in the room or the least accomplished person in the room so that I can build up to their level. And I love the fact that I would say almost all of my friends now are older than me, which I think is pretty cool.
I'm very much the same. Like hearing all of that, I just see us as like this vessel of like a science experiment. Like there's all these little catalysts that go along the way to like transform you into these new substances and like the Tom that you are today. And I think that's really like, it's such a strength to be able to call out your people that, you know, I'm sure everyone who's in this field has had those moments where you just don't expect that those people would be out there to, like, they're not purposely out there to tear you down. It's just they're not kind of seeing it. I guess they're not understanding your needs really. And like, you know, like when you can't speak the same language, it kind of eliminates you from playing the same game. It's like we're playing a different game of life here. I can't communicate to you in a way that you're going to understand. So it's actually almost pointless trying to make this a pretty situation. It's like, I'm leaving, like I'll be here if you need. But something else that's really interesting in what a lot of my yoga teachers and trainers will say is that there's like this average drop off of students where you put in all of this work initially and people like super keen, like 18 months in, and you're like, yeah. And then 3 years or whatever comes and students start dropping off. And it's because they start like either shining too much light within themselves that's like, this is too confronting. And they fall away like, I don't want to deal with that shit. And then there's people like you who is like a walking example of that. And you're in their face of like how life is working for you and how you're turning things around. It's like, no, I just want to drink because it's easier to do that. And it's like, well, I want something else and I'm going to continue to do that. And if ever, you know, you are open to that in the future, like it could be 30 years down the track and they'll be like, hey man, like, I'm so sorry that all that came through, but you know, maybe they won't, and that's okay. Like, so it's pretty admirable. Like you're pretty young to have a really mature mindset around that. So like one of my questions, which I kind of asked before, is like your top 3 role models or teachers. But when I was listening to you speak, I feel like your mum is like the hub of it all. Like she's kind of like this core role model that has led you to all of the teachers and stuff that you have today. But yeah, in terms of recommending like books or podcasts, I know that you mentioned the teachers, but are there any like resources that you would be like 100% you need to go and get this book? Or like I'm raving about your podcast. I'm popping it up there and sharing it because I think it's awesome.
Thank you.
You're welcome. But are there any like books or anything or different kinds of resources that you've used, like fitness stuff? I don't care, whatever.
Yeah, I would say Unleash the Power Within, Date with Destiny, Life Mastery, like all those Tony Robbins events. You've got to save the money for it and you've just got to do it, because out of all of them, I would say Date with Destiny is just incredible. And I'm reading Awaken the Giant Within by Tony Robbins at the moment, which is the book sort of based off Date with Destiny. And that's, you know, we're going through a lot of similar processes in that book as to what we did with Date with Destiny. And for me, that was such a pivotal moment with a lot of the things I, you know, figured out so many things about my past and figured out why I am the way I am and changed certain things to suit where I want to go in the future, especially that goal setting exercise we did and the value setting exercise. For me, that was huge when we changed our values, because I figured out for me that I've always been someone that's an achiever. So I've always strived to be the best. You know, I always wanted to be the best at school, the best at sport, the best at whatever it was. And I also had a massive, massive fear of failure, which crippled me a lot. And I think that's the reason I never succeeded in cricket, was because of my fear of failure. It just trumped everything. And, you know, I just never had the confidence to go out there and perform. And that stems back to seeking approval, seeking attention from my dad, which I never got. So, you know, I might come home from the year 3 athletics carnival or something like that, and I'd be like, you know, Dad, I won champion boy, I won all my running races or something like that. And he'd be like, yeah, that's cool, but you know, there's a pile of sticks over there that needs putting on the fire. And because we grew up on a farm, so, you know, he was always trying to get me to do things around the farm, or, you know, he might say, oh, this needs doing, that needs doing, and he never recognized that. Not that, you know, I feel like now I need that recognition, but that was something in the past that I was always craving. So because I became someone that was striving to be an achiever, for me, I realized that was my number one value over everything. So even when I got into personal development and started to share my journey and share different bits and pieces, I only really wanted it so I could be successful and sort of, I guess, get that recognition from people as someone doing something cool, doing something different. And it was purely for a recognition standpoint. And now I realized, wow, I didn't actually recognize how much of an effect that was having on me and the content I was putting out and things like that. And now that I've changed it around, like I've got them in front of me now, my new values, health and energy is number one over everything. Because if you're not in good health, then you're not going to be able to do everything else. And then it pretty much goes love, joy, passion, gratitude, leadership, making a difference, wisdom, self-growth, and then success and achievements number 10 now, whereas it was number one before. So that's why I say to people, you have to go to Tony Robbins at least once in your lifetime, because that will be an absolute game changer for you. In terms of books, there's so many I could mention. There's a lot of different health ones that I've read, which are really important for figuring out how to improve your health. Dirty Genes by Dr. Ben Lynch is a really interesting one about how to eat specifically for the genes you have. David Goggins' book is another amazing one. I'm sure most people know who David Goggins is, but unless you've read his book, you can't truly understand everything he's been through, because all the podcasts and the videos and stuff, they don't do it justice. In his book, he describes everything in detail, all the little things. And he's such an inspiration to me, because he proves that human beings can do anything. And he's been from the lowest of lows for almost any human and has reached the highest of highs, whereas a lot of us probably start in the middle and stay in the middle, whereas he started at the bottom and made his way to the top. So the way I describe things is, we can't put him on a pedestal and say he's different, because we are starting in a much better position than where he started. So we have no excuses. You know, he started at the very bottom and made it to the top. We're starting in the middle and we're not going anywhere. Yet we put him on a pedestal and go, oh, he's different. He's, you know, he was built different. He's got, you know, different special abilities that we don't have. You know, he's born with that mindset. He wasn't born with that mindset. He built that over hard work and just grinding it out every day. So that's another book that's really important for people, I think. There's so many. I love all Robin Sharma's books. They're amazing. Brendan Burchard's got a couple of good ones. There's different ones on habits and routines, different ones on health and personal development. But I think if I could narrow it all down to one, it's just go to a Tony event. Listen to podcasts like Tom Billy's podcast, Impact Theory, and Lewis Howes's School of Greatness. Jay Shetty and all those guys have got some amazing ones, but Tony Robbins is the godfather of personal development for a reason. So go to his event and it'll change your life.
Date with Destiny was my first one, and I actually love that you have your poster there, because I have it on my bathroom mirror, and it's cool that I know what would be on your poster of, like, in terms of, like, what are your top 4 goals this year? What are you aiming towards this year? What are they? Next 12 months, go.
Yeah, so one of them the number one is to do like an ultra endurance event to raise some money for charity, which I did a similar one on the 31st of December last year. It's the last day of the year. I hadn't done one, which I'd done the year before. I'd done the marathon. And then this one, I was like, well, I want to do Jacob's Ladder 100 times, because that would be super, super grueling. That was my one for last year. This year, I'm planning on doing the David Goggins 4x48 challenge, which is basically 4 miles every 4 hours for 48 hours. So it's like 6.4 kilometers or something every 4 hours for 48 hours. So I'm going to I haven't picked the charity yet. I'm still undecided, because the one I did on New Year's Eve was for mental health, because obviously that's something that I've got a personal connection to. I know one of my mates has been battling his epilepsy pretty bad. So I'm thinking maybe something along those lines, or maybe even something for like war veterans or something like that, just to change it up. The other one, or the second one I've got in there, is to go to Queensland and meet Glenn Azar. So the person that I spoke about before with the Building Better Humans Project podcast. So that looks like it's going to go ahead in early June. So that one will be ticked off the list, hopefully. The third one was make $100,000 so that I can go to Business Mastery, Leadership Academy, and all the different ones that Tony has, and then to also take my mum to Kokoda when we're allowed to travel to other countries and stuff. So I'm a fair way off that at the moment, but I'm a big fan of setting crazy, unrealistic goals anyway. And I realized when I was writing that it's probably not going to come to fruition, but if I can get 3/4 of the way there, then I'd be more than happy. So I always like to set the bar very, very high and strive to achieve that, because I always tell people, if you set a realistic goal for yourself, you're actually setting a ceiling for yourself. But if you set a goal that's completely unrealistic and almost likely to never be achieved, there's no limit to what you can actually achieve. So I know a good example is my stepbrother. He, a couple of months ago, did want to compete in like a bodybuilding competition, or, he was getting into the gym for the first time and said, what should my goals be? And I said, your goal should be to compete in bodybuilding. You might not ever do it. You might not want to do it. But if you train like that, then you're going to look amazing. You're going to, have the discipline. You're going to be training hard every day. You're not just going to walk in, do 3 bicep curls and walk out. You're going to train like you're actually going to compete. And, he's seen some amazing results. He's not going as much anymore because he's sort of focusing more on his golf. But, that's the key there, was setting that unrealistic goal. And the fourth one that's kind of hiding behind my laptop is basically to do some public speaking events. So that's something that I've always wanted to do, but I've just never really had the opportunity to do it as such. But I'm sort of in the works with, I've got a couple of ideas of what I want to do. I've just got to put it to the right people and try and set it up. But I really want to work on my public speaking and, share everything that I want to share with people, rather than it just being on the podcast. I want to meet with people face to face and say, or even over Zoom, which wouldn't be as good, but it might be more, I guess, practical with the world we live in at the moment. But I just want to do more public speaking and just share, tips on health, fitness, personal development, all that sort of stuff. So yeah, they're my 4 for this year.
That's awesome. Like, if you actually, I think we might be meeting you tomorrow if you're around up in.
Yeah, I'll be going.
Yeah, cool. It'll be nice to put a face to an actual human body and not just a screen. I'm really excited about that. But we have Wealth Mastery here, so I'll check in with Sarah and Josh, and if you're around for that few days, just pop down. Like, I know you're probably someone who doesn't want to like step on people's toes, but we're all the same. Like, we smash it out and we love being around each other's energy. But then at the end of it, it's just like, let me be. I just need to go and sleep. And
yeah.
So if you're about, it'd be wicked. And
Awesome.
One of our goals is to do more public speaking as well. So I know Josh was looking into some of the Toastmaster things. I think that's what they're called. Just to put it out there. Like, I don't know. Like, I even think just practicing, like doing things where you're meeting people like this, or doing mini presentations. It's different to like where now you're comfortable on your podcast, like pushing yourself to that next level of like, oh, I'm actually a little bit uncomfortable now that it's like humans, or I don't know. It'd be awesome. And I know that, Josh definitely loves your energy as well. And I don't know how much Sarah's looked into your stuff, but she's like another version of me. So we'd love to have you around, and
that'd be awesome.
Cool. Yes. Oh, you've got such cool stuff. I honestly feel like we could talk for hours. Hey, like it's cool when you find that easygoing human that's like, I'm also interested. Do you have like hard copy books or Audible? Like, are you?
Yeah, good question. I've got a combination of both. So I've got a list of books I'd like to read written down on my laptop that I think is about 5 or 6 pages long. So there's probably hundreds and hundreds of books there. And I'm looking at it going, I'm not going to get through all of these in the next few years, maybe not even in my lifetime, just with the amount of books that I'm adding to the list constantly. So I've got both. The books that I think I will find the most importance for, or the most value from, the ones that I'm really going to take great value from, I will buy those physically, because I've also got a vision in my mind of like my dream home having a massive library with all these different books in it. So the books that I think I will really, really enjoy reading and I'll find a lot of value from, I'll buy the physical copies of. The books that I go, I don't know if I'll find that much value from it, but it's still something that I want to read. You know, I might just find one thing that triggers something cool, or, you know, I might find one thing that just is a light bulb moment for me in that book. That's something that I'll listen to. But having said that, sometimes depending on the person reading on Audible, sometimes they're pretty hard to listen to. So I know I originally got Why We Sleep by Matthew Walker on Audible, and that was impossible to listen to just with the guy on there. So I bought the physical copy, and yeah, I don't regret that at all.
I was literally just looking up Matthew Walker like before we were on here. For some
Wow.
into my head, and I was like, I need to know more about Matthew Walker, because I know that he had a book on sleep. And weirdly, some of the questions that I had in here was around sleep for you, and I literally don't know you from other than the internet, and none of it has any of that in there. So that I love how that works. What's like your top book that you don't have yet that is like on the top of your list, I guess, to get as a hard copy?
Oh, That's Such a Good Life by Jordan Peterson. So I know one of the other personal trainers at the gym is he finished that today, I think he mentioned. So that's one that's definitely up there. There's a couple of others. I really want to get Boundless by Ben Greenfield, which is a biohacking sort of textbook almost, because that's something that I'm quite interested in, is sort of hacking your health for longevity and optimal energy and things like that. So that's another one that I really, really want to get. There's Breathe or Breath, I don't know what it is, by James Nestor, which is talking about how to breathe properly, which is a really, really interesting one that I want to get to. I'm probably missing a couple that I know if I was to look through my list that they'd be there. But yeah, like I said, it's probably a couple of hundred books long. Or there's all the, I can't even think of his name at the moment. But yeah, there's plenty. Like
What was that second one?
If I've got all day. And
you said Such a Good Life.
Boundless by Ben Greenfield.
Boundless. Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool. That's really cool. I'll have a look into those. And
Ryan Holiday books as well.
Ryan Holiday, no worries. Cool. That's awesome, dude. I actually I'll give those a squiz, and I always love different content too, like from a variety of different aspects, because sometimes you need to draw on things like health related with nutrition, but then it's like also cool to just delve into new topics of like the neuroscience or something that's like it all kind of ends up coming back to the same thing. But it's definitely just to get different teachers' perspectives, because I'm someone who I can be a quick learner in things I'm interested in, but sometimes comprehension can take me a little while with certain topics if it's like not my strength. So like finding good teachers or good books is like something that I just like froth over. I'm like, yes, I just love this. Cool. So let's go to some quick fire questions that I put down for you, that just whatever comes to mind straight away. And then I reckon we'll probably wrap it up so we can, oh my God, it's 5 o'clock. What the hell? Yes. That's awesome. Oh, for some reason I thought we started at 3. We've only been chatting for an hour. That's cool. All right. Apple or Android?
Yeah. Oh, definitely Apple. Yeah, all my stuff's Apple.
Shoes or barefoot?
Definitely shoes. I'm a big sneaker fan. So anyone that knows me well knows that I've got a lot of pairs of running shoes, and I'm very interested in the science behind running shoes too. So I'm always watching YouTube videos on shoes. And having said that though, I know I should be barefoot more than what I am, especially for the different health benefits of the structure of your foot, as well as like earthing or grounding, as some people call it. But I can't get away from the different Nike shoes they've got out there. Nike's definitely my favorite by far.
Have you ever heard of Vivo barefoot? VEVO?
Yeah, I have. One of the PTs at the gym has a pair, I'm pretty sure. But yeah, I've heard Ross Edgley talk a lot about it because I think he's sponsored by them. But yeah, I have heard good things about them, but I've just never really looked into it that much.
Yeah, no worries. Next thing. Uh, do you have a favorite meal that your mum cooks, and what is it? Is she a good cook?
Oh, yeah, she is a very good cook. Favorite meal? Oh, she makes a really good carbonara.
Oh,
Um,
yes.
she also makes a really good pizza as well. So I think anything Italian from her is
Mm,
normally pretty good.
yeah,
Yeah.
awesome. Who is your go-to friend for advice?
Go-to friend for advice. Oh, I guess it would depend on the type of advice, but I feel like I'm still going back to my mum for that.
Yeah,
She's always my reference point for everything, and then if she doesn't know, she'll point me to the right person. But yeah, I've probably got, a couple that depending on what it is I'd go to, but for most things I'm going to my mum for that.
yeah. What's her name? I need to know your mum.
Sharon.
Sharon. Hi, Sharon. You're a legend. Who is who is your craziest and most outgoing person in your life? Because you strike me as someone who has that good combo of you can be an extrovert in the things that you choose, but you're probably naturally introverted by the sound of it.
Yeah, definitely. So I think my stepbrother for that one, he's not necessarily fully extroverted, but he can, he loves being the life of the party sort of thing. So yeah, I'd say him.
Cool, good answer. What is something that no one or very little people know about you? Obviously, with what you're willing to share.
Oh, interesting question.
Is
Something that no one knows about me.
it can be ridiculous, it can be serious or
Oh,
funny or something on your
yeah, it's a
little
good
left toe.
question because yeah, I mean, because I'm a very open person, so with most things I've shared everything. Um, Something that someone doesn't know about me. Oh, that's really racking my brain for that one.
I've gotcha.
Um, yeah, actually, this has just come to mind, and my school teachers probably wouldn't be too happy about this, but, and I don't think any of the other students knew this either, but when it came to tests and stuff in school, I'd often write like acronyms or something like on my hand, but then rub it off enough that I can still see what it is, or, I'd write words I need to remember for tests or something and rub it off just enough so that I could still see it, but anyone walking past that looked at my hand wouldn't be able to see it. So there were a lot of tests where I'd get stuck and look down at my wrist and go, "Oh, perfect, there it is." So I even did that in like my Year 12 exams and stuff too. So it was a pretty smart tactic actually, because I never got close to being caught, and it helped me in many situations.
Well, you must be a twin because I remember one particular exam. It was like you're only allowed to bring in one sheet of notes. I'm like, well, let me just show you how small I can write. And it was literally
Yeah, I did the
like
same.
whole friggin' assignment. It's like A plus. I'm like, how did we get here? This is where I know that school is an absolute joke in a lot of circumstances. I'm like, this is just, I mean, it taught me repetition is the mother of skill though, right? And I love
Yeah, for
writing.
sure.
So
I
that's
mean, most of the
so.
time I didn't need to resort back to it anyway. Like I'd memorized it and I wouldn't look at it, but on the odd chance that I'd forgotten, it was always there.
But I just think also defy the odds. Yes.
Yeah. Yeah, it's not cheating, it's being resourceful.
Right. Oh, that's great. This one. I'm really curious about your answer for this one. If you had to choose, would you choose the loss of your function of both legs or both of your arms, and why?
Oh, I'd say legs because I feel like I can do a lot more with my hands. So I still want to be able to write. I still want to be able to type. I still want to be able to, cut food and do all the simple things that we use our hands for. I would definitely miss my legs not being able to, train them at the gym or go for a run. But then there's always, wheelchair sports and things like that. So I think, yeah, I would definitely have my legs go first before my arms.
Good choice. How much sleep do you aim for each night? And do you have like a methodology behind that?
Yeah, so good question. I actually wear a Whoop strap. I don't know if you've ever seen those, but they're probably the top health tracker in the world. With the amount of data they give you, it is absolutely insane. Like, you can log into the app the time of night you have dinner, and that will tell you how that affects the quality of your sleep. So it'll come up saying when you have dinner at 7:06 p.m., the quality of your sleep decreases by 23% compared to 6:23 p.m. or something ridiculous like that. So it actually tells you the exact amount of sleep you need every night, depending on whether you want to just get by, perform, or be in like a peak state. So there's like 3 options depending on how you want to feel the next day. I normally have it on the perform, so that's kind of like the middle one. And that tells me, depending on how hard I've worked that day, it'll say you need 8 hours and 7 minutes of sleep tonight. So generally that's what I'm going to try to aim for, especially after reading Why We Sleep by Matthew Walker. 7 to 8 hours of actual sleep a night minimum. So that's what I'm always aiming for. And that's not time in bed, that's time asleep. And I know from wearing my Whoop, some nights I'm actually awake for a whole hour during the night, and I don't even realize, like, I'm not physically sitting up in my bed going, oh, I'm awake. But you don't realize that through the sleep cycles that you do wake up during the night. You obviously want to try and decrease that as much as possible. But, there's nights where I might be asleep for, most of the night and only awake for 5 minutes or 10 minutes. So for people that aim for 7 hours in bed, they might only get 6 hours of actual sleep. So for me, I'm always aiming for a minimum 7 hours of actual sleep. But that's obviously dependent on when I've got clients too, because I've got a couple of clients at the gym that want to be there at 5:30 in the morning. So I've got to get up super early and sometimes cut my sleep a little bit short. But yeah, I'm always aiming for anywhere between 7 to 8 hours of actual sleep a night as the minimum.
How did you go with Date with Destiny and all of those?
Yeah,
The
good
seminars,
question.
because that is like minimum, like maximum, 3 hours. Like, do you know what I mean? Where
Yeah.
I'm going to bed and I'm eating breakfast, but I just ate dinner and I'm very confused as to whether the sun's setting or it's rising. And
Yeah, that's right. I thought it was going to be way harder than what it actually was. So I was taking a lot of melatonin, a lot of zinc, magnesium, vitamin B6, different sleep vitamins and stuff. I actually used to work at a pharmacy years ago, so I know a lot of the vitamins and stuff quite well. So I knew exactly what I needed to take to kind of put me on that time zone. And I was reading that same book, Why We Sleep by Matthew Walker as well. And he talks about changing time zones and jet lag and melatonin and things like that. So it was actually a lot easier than what I thought it would be. I was still quite tired, but I was sleeping okay. There were some nights where I was getting 6 hours of actual sleep. I know in Life Mastery recently, there was a time where we had a little bit extra. I think the day started a little bit later and the one before had finished a little bit earlier. So we had probably a good 12 hours to actually sleep, and I was in bed for that full 12 hours. I think I was only asleep for about 9.5 of that, but just with my body clock telling me to wake up because it was daytime, and I guess the stress of waking up in what I thought was the middle of the night was probably like 2 p.m. or something, and then mum telling me, oh, by the way, WA's in lockdown, you're not going to be able to go back to work after this for a week. And I struggled a little bit that night, but it was much easier than what I thought it would be, purely because I'd wear my blue light blocking glasses, which I absolutely swear by for anyone that wants better sleep as well. They 100% work for everyone beyond shadow of a doubt. So I'd wear those an hour or two before going to sleep, and then I'd take all the different vitamins and powders and stuff that would basically a big concoction of things that would knock me out. So it was, a little bit easier than what I thought. So I was still able to get sort of around 5 to 6 hours of actual sleep as a minimum, even up to 7 or 8 at the top end.
wow, awesome answer. I feel like I want to do a whole episode. I was just talking to Josh about this because we recorded an episode the other day, and he's really passionate about sleep as well. And I feel like it would be epic to get him on board and just have you in as well, and just have like a whole topic around sleep, because it's such a huge, like, if ever there was a pandemic, it's like lack of sleep, and they're talking about COVID, but it's like there's this like fatigue and insomnia. It's like, why aren't we talking about this? And I'm sure there's heaps of places that are talking about it. But why not spread more of the word around and get
that's it.
Yeah. Cool.
Because the lack of sleep's glorified, right? So, you know, people like The Rock that go, oh, you know, I'm sleeping 4 hours a night and I'm waking up at 3 a.m. to go and do a workout. Like I used to do the same when I was really into David Goggins, just as he was becoming popular. I was waking up at 3 a.m. to go to the gym with my mate every morning. And, you know, I thought that's, you know, didn't really matter that much. And there's all those, you know, people in business doing that, you know, going to sleep at 3 a.m. and waking up at 6 and doing it all over again. And people don't think it makes that much of a difference, but once you read the science behind it and read that book as well, you realize how much of an effect it's going to have on your life in the future. And, you know, The Rock talks about, you know, oh, I don't need much sleep, I'm fine, I'll just battle through, you know, I'm not going to be weak or whatever. And Matthew Walker goes, yeah, let's see what he's like when he's 60 and see how he's traveling, see if he's got cancer, see if his telomeres have shortened to, you know, made his biological or chronological age, I think it's biological age, you know, older than what he actually is, and you know, different things like that. So it's amazing how much of an impact a lack of sleep gets or has on your health. Even anything less than 7 hours of actual sleep a night is ridiculous. Like I think there was one thing in the book where he said the equivalent of 6 hours total sleep for 10 nights in a row, on that 10th night, it's the equivalent of you going like an all-nighter and not sleeping at all. So for people that only get 6 hours of sleep a night, every 10th day, you're doing an all-nighter, essentially, in terms of your alertness and productivity and what you can actually put out and the way your brain's working. So for me, I was like, yeah, damn, I've got to really prioritize this thing over everything else. And I say the same to my clients at the gym. I say, yes, we're working on your fitness here. Yes, I'm giving you advice on nutrition, but if you're not sleeping well, then what we're doing here is pointless anyway. So sleep before everything else, then I'd say it's nutrition, then I'd say it's exercise.
I love that because my background's in shift work, and it's the people that are giving the advice to look after people that literally can't do the same for themselves. And that's the reason that I left. It was like at the expense of my health. And like, you know, I left in a mentally good place and pretty physically good place as well. But I still notice myself doing that because it's my personality of like, oh, if I've got work at this time, then I'm going to get up like 3 hours earlier to do a big practice before my day. And it's like, that might mean that I've like slept for like 2 hours, like on some of the nights. And I'm like, and then I wonder why I'm not feeling great, why my body isn't digesting well, and why my skin's crap. But I did my practice. Why isn't everything shaping up? It's like, we need to come back to the root cause of how restorative sleep is. And I'd love to chat to you as well if you, not sure if you know anything about yoga nidra at all, but
No.
yeah, we'll have a chat about that because it goes into all of like the brain waves and stuff. And it's like a 30-minute practice that you do. And it's basically like yogic sleep, but it's not your body going to sleep. It's like, your awareness remains aware, but your body and your mind rest. So it essentially gives you like,
right.
Yeah, like a couple of sleep cycles. But yeah, we'll talk about that.
Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah, it's really cool because there's like there's different categories for what you can do it for. So there's like healing, transformation, cognition, or peace. And so there's like a different script that I would guide you through. And essentially the aim of it is for you to be able to remain aware, to do all of the processes, but for your body to go into like the state that sleep gives you. But at the end of it, you should be able to hear that you've been guided to come out of it. It's not like a hypnosis or anything creepy or scary, but yeah.
No, that's interesting.
And you can find it on, you will have access to my website as of the 1st of April. And I want to give that to some of your clients too, if they'd be interested in like.
Yeah, I'm sure some of them definitely would. I know one of them does a little bit of yoga herself, and a couple of others in the past have, so I'm sure they'd be interested in that. Yeah, for sure.
Cool. We'll tee it up after here when when we wrap this up. I'll stop the recording, but we can keep chatting because I want to set up how you can pop your clients over, and it's like just give them like a 50% discount or whatever. Like we can organize something. So this one, I feel like you'll love this question. I don't know why. Are you the kind of guy who eats your favorite part of the meal first or strategically leaves it to the end?
Oh, good question. I I reckon I'm going to leave it to the end most times so I can finish on a good note.
Yeah.
I know growing up, I never really liked, fruit, veg, all that stuff. As I guess a lot of young kids don't. And I remember mum pretty much gave me an ultimatum and said, if you don't finish your dinner, you're not playing cricket. So that was the first time I was like, okay, I've got to start eating this stuff now, and I've got to find a way to get it down without gagging or whatever. So if I had a steak there with some veg or something like that, I was, cutting my steak up into the tiniest little pieces so I could at least have a little bit of that in my mouth every time I had some veg in there too, in the hope that I'd still have a bite-sized piece of steak left at the end after all the veg was gone. So I guess that's probably become a little bit of a habit to the point where I'm always saving the best till last.
Try with your next meal to not do that, and let me know how you go.
Okay, that'll be interesting.
And I was going to say that as well. This isn't a very quick fire. This is so my pace. It's like quick fire 7 hours later. With the sleep thing and Tony Robbins, I feel like, he's got all of the right support, I guess, for his health, but at the same time, it doesn't make up for lost hours. And I feel like his body is, like you said, it's the chronological versus the biological age. And I'm like, I feel like he can't keep going. Like his body literally will have to give out at some point where it's like, dude, you are expending so much incredible energy, which we love and we want you to keep doing, but surely like that has to be at the expense of his physiology, right? Like,
yeah, for sure. And that's why in the feedback form for Life Mastery, I actually said, look, where's all the content on sleep? Because we've been through everything. We talked a lot about exercise, a lot about, most of it was nutrition, different bits and pieces with like the colonics and also, tapping and all sorts of different things. And they were talking about the flow of electricity through the body, through different process, and everything was covered, but nothing on sleep. Or, there might have been the odd mention of it, but there was no frameworks or no experts that came on to speak about it. And I was thinking that going, well, I've just read a book, that's explained how important it is. Why aren't we learning about this through Life Mastery? Because that would provide a lot of value to, the CEOs and the executives and the business people that are sacrificing their sleep, even when they're going to an event like that, that's on American time, but we're in Australia and things like that. So I think that would have been very, very powerful for people to learn more about sleep. But yeah, for Tony, it's an interesting one. I feel like he would last longer than most purely out of, his passion. And you never know, behind the scenes, he might be getting enough sleep when he's not doing, all his events, but he's still doing an event every, 3 or 4 weeks anyway. But yeah, it's a very interesting one, because at the same time, I wouldn't say I disagree with a lot of the stuff we learned at Life Mastery, but at the same time, it kind of conflicted with a lot of the stuff I'd learned through different podcasts and books. And it was very hard for me to believe a lot of the things they were saying purely based on other things that I've learned. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see how he goes over the next few years, because I know one of the other PTs that's actually going to Date with Destiny in about a month's time on the Gold Coast. He completely disagrees with the diet and the whole acidity versus alkalinity. And, he goes, if Tony talks about that, I'm not listening, because it's, I refuse to agree with everything that he talks about. So yeah, just in terms of Tony's diet and different bits and pieces around his sleep and everything like that, it'll be interesting to see how he goes. Fingers crossed, it lasts forever. I don't want him to die. No one does.
No,
but
I know.
Yeah,
but I guess
his voice is going too.
Oh my God, he has been better. And like I have observed that he steps out, like he has his times that he's there, but he'll step out, and yeah, he's probably got something set up out the back where, he's either getting body work or he's resting or whatever it is, just to preserve that. But in a way with the sleep, I guess delivering it would probably be a bit incongruent with the actual content, like with the actual event itself. Like if they're saying you need X amount and it's going, like there's literally not enough time in the day to get that, it might be an incongruency thing. But I think it's important to be informed about it, because like those events are a snapshot in time. They're not how you move forward. And I disagree with a lot of the nutrition stuff as well, because I have a background in Ayurveda. And so a lot of the raw stuff doesn't sit well with my body. I understand that you need like there's the importance of like going through detox, and I completely get that. Like there's some things that work for me and I've kept those, but I also can see that, you know, if you haven't done the research like you and I would, of like, that works for my body, that doesn't, and that's been through trial and error, you could very much adopt like, oh, I'm going to have this liver smoothie all the time and have this salad with no dressing. It's like, I'm fucking depressed. Like this is horrible. Like this,
Well, there's no protein or fat in that diet. So for me, when looking at that, I was like, I'm not eating protein or fat for 4 days. And for me, from everything I've learned, like I'm not a huge, believer in protein necessarily. Most PTs are like, oh, use my discount code, go to Nutrition Warehouse and buy all the protein powders and all that. I'm not a huge fan of protein necessarily, but from everything I've learned about fats, they're very, very important, all the good fats anyway, but we're not doing that for 4 days. And I can understand the concept behind it, but at the same time, I was like, oh, I feel like I need it.
And that's the thing, like, that's why, like, it is good having an educated background, because I'm someone who's like competitive, and it's like, I'll competitively follow the rules of like, no, I'm going to do it and I'm going to do it fucking good. And it's like, actually, no, that's not feeling right, and I'm feeling hungry, or I'm going to have this. And like, it was good having our team, and like, we stuck with it the whole way, but we didn't do like this, even the fact that it was called a cold spinach soup, I was just like, that ain't right. Like something is so wrong about this. Like I'll have the smoothies and the fruit, but then I'm just like, isn't that a lot of sugar? And I don't know. It's just, it's an odd mix of things. And because then, you're not getting sleep, and it's like, I'm not actually sure what my body's needing at what time. And I'm taking nutrients and supplements and eating at weird hours. So, like it I guess it was quite an extreme end of nutrition, which I guess most people that are going to it, like, you have the ability to say yes or no to anything in life. And anyway, next question. Where's your like ultimate happy place?
Kings Park. That's just where I transformed my life. Scarborough Beach wouldn't be far off either, because that whole year of 2018, every weekend I was either at Scarborough or at Kings Park. But I'd say Kings Park just because, I still go there almost every weekend. I don't think I'll go a month of my life without going there. The longest I've probably been without going there would be a couple of weeks. So I'm always there, just walking around, running there, going to Jacob's Ladder, whatever it is, listening to a podcast or something like that. That's, my happy place. A lot of good memories. And that's where I transformed my life, I guess. So that's the place I always resort back to whenever I'm feeling down, or the opposite, when I'm feeling amazing, I'll go there to, heighten the experience or something like that. That's just, the one place I'll go every time.
That's awesome. It's an appropriate title of a park for that question. It's like the king. Yes, that's epic. Comedy or action?
Oh, yeah. It depends on the type of comedy, because I know a lot of it I don't find funny, but I'd probably say action, purely because more often than not, I'll find that more entertaining than comedy. I'm not a fan of the cheesy type comedy. It just doesn't entertain me. It needs to be something that's mentally stimulating. And I guess a lot of the action isn't really like that too, but with a lot of the movies or, things that I watch, they need to be mentally stimulating. So I'm a big fan of like the old sort of whodunit movies where you're trying to like, pick who, the serial killer is or something like that. So it needs to be something that's still stimulating my brain. But at the same time, like, I'm a big Jim Carrey fan. With some of his movies, some of them are a bit cheesy, but with the person he is, I've listened to. If anyone hasn't listened to it, you should search Jim Carrey inspirational speech at college graduation or something on YouTube, because that's one of the best motivational videos out there. So I'm a big Jim Carrey fan for that reason. And Liar Liar, the movie that he did, that's probably my favorite movie of all time. I'll laugh at that every single day of the week. But I'd probably say action just over comedy.
I'm going to send you some comedians that they have a series on Netflix at the moment, and it's like 4 episodes. My sister and I watched them all, and just fucking hilarious. But like, I am the same as you, where I'm like, oh, I feel like people try and be funny, and I like wit versus like,
Yes.
I'm just like, oh, I just need that, like, nobody else is picking up on this joke, but I'm like on the ground, I'm breathless. Like, you are so amazing. So I feel like I know that, I just feel like you would like it. And there is like a Steve Martin and Marty Short one that it's incredible. It's only like an hour or something, but these 2 guys I want to send you are like these improv comedians that work together, and they're just amazing.
Cool.
I'll pop that through to your Instagram.
Cool.
Yeah. So what is a superpower you've always wanted? And do you feel like you have it?
Yeah. I mean, I'd love the ability to fly, because that would just, make life a lot easier. Even being invisible too. I've always wanted the ability to just not be seen, and just like, yeah, I feel like it'd be a cool thing to have, just be able to, walk around and not be seen by anyone, and just sort of observe without being observed. But I think the ultimate thing I'd love to do would be, the ability to time travel. For me, I want to be able to go back to the beginning of time and figure out how we are all here. People talk about the Big Bang, but how did the Big Bang get there, and all that sort of stuff that just no one can put their finger on as to why we are here. I'd love to be able to see how we evolved to where we are today. Going to the future would kind of be cool too, but for me, I'd really just want to, like, it just blows my mind. Whenever I think about it, I just go like, how are we here? How is this even a thing? How am I, talking to you through Wi-Fi and, looking at a laptop screen? Like, who even thought to invent this, and the technology behind this, and the microphone I've got here, and the house we're in, and just everything like that blows my mind. I want to be able to go back to the beginning of time and figure out, how we're even here.
That is awesome. I love that. Time travel. Like, that is, because I was going to ask you earlier and I forgot. Do you believe in past lives, and like, because something I believe in is that we choose the families that we're in, regardless of it being challenging or gross or amazing. It's like, I feel like we choose the situations we're in to be the person that we are today, or to get to our mission, essentially.
Yeah, it's an interesting one. I wouldn't say, like, I'm not religious or anything like that, and it's kind of purely from like a science standpoint. I just can't see how that would be. But at the same time, I've had experiences where it kind of makes you think, well, maybe there is something out there, maybe there is a past life or an afterlife. And, I still believe in energy to an extent. Like, I believe that our thoughts have energy, and that's how you manage to manifest things through your life is, and that, like, manifesting things for me is 100% real, because if I, go and visualize something every single day, I find that more often than not, it will occur in the near future. And a good example of that is a few years ago, throughout the off season for cricket, every single night before bed, I was doing a visualization process of me scoring a century first game of the season. I was visualizing the exact shot I'd play to bring it up. And sure enough, that year, it was just a little roll off my hips for 2, which is what I'd been visualizing. And I brought up a century first game of the season. So for me, that was, and I even visualized exactly where my mum would be sitting, and me raising my bat and my helmet to her and celebrating. And it happened exactly as I'd visualized it. So for me, that is just proof that it works 100%. But at the same time, you need to put in the work. So you can't just visualize and expect it to come to fruition. You still need to be out there grinding away, practicing, and having faith that eventually it is, the stars will align and it will all come together for you. So I believe in that. But I wouldn't say at this point in my life, I don't believe in much else. I guess purely because I haven't had the experience to show me otherwise. I know it was an interesting one at Life Mastery where we did a meditation with Master Co, and we were kind of trying to feel like it was almost like an out of body experience. And he was talking about we are separate from our bodies. And for me, I was a little bit conflicted with that. I was kind of thinking, yeah, but I feel like I am my body. I get what he's saying, but, I still feel like I am my body, and science kind of backs that up at the end of the day too. So yeah, I'm conflicted is probably my final answer for that one, I would say, if that makes any sense.
It makes 100% sense because, teaching in the area that I do, I have a lot of like people like yourself who I resonate completely with, and they, there's topics that I'll bring up to challenge you or to like ask you what your opinion is, because I'm someone who I believe in energy and spirit. I'm not religious, but I believe that there's something else. Like there has to be something in this space in between where you and I exist. And it's like, I can't see it, I can't touch it, but I think something spiritual to me is something that I almost can't explain. It has to be, you have to have enough experiences to just go, I know there is something else. I know there is something bigger than me guiding my directions. And like you said, I'm not someone who uses that as a lazy excuse for, the universe is just working for me and blah. It's like, no, there has to be a level of faith plus action equals results. Like that's kind of how I see, like, I guess miracles in a way, or like things happening.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Like that's how I would define miracles in a scientific kind of way. Like I have to be a level of belief that there is something that you can't explain, plus a level of action that you're putting in equals the results of whatever the hell that thing is that doesn't exist yet. Or maybe it's already been.
Sure.
And maybe like coming back to the triad of like language, focus, and physiology, focus, where your focus goes, energy flows. And we can put it back to that in a more practical sense for anyone who's probably like, what is she going on about? Is she talking about her woo-woo shit again? So yeah, I like it as well when people have their own viewpoint on things like this. Like I appreciate you being real, and I know that will appeal to a lot of the listeners as well. Like a lot of the people that I resonate have a very similar opinion like you, and I love that. So yeah, thank you for just being you in general. I have two more questions, and then
awesome.
Oh no, what? Yeah. So what's your latest word that you notice yourself saying a lot of?
Excellent is what I'm saying a lot of at the moment. I've just noticed a lot at the gym when I'll be, with a client or something, they'll do an exercise and I'll be like, yeah, excellent job. Or, like they'll say, how's my technique? And I'll say, excellent. So that's something that I've been trying to implement more words like that have a little bit more meaning than just good or something like that. Because I know reading Awaken the Giant Within, Tony Robbins, he talks about trying to find words that have a little bit more emotion attached to it. I'm still trying to find some words that are a bit better than excellent, but aren't too out there at the same time either. So I know, a good example of that is when people ask me, oh, how are you doing today? I don't like saying good or not bad or something like that. Occasionally it's just habit. So sometimes I'll say those things, but I'm trying to find a way of, saying something else. And I know something that I've heard Glenn Azar talk about is he will say, yeah, really productive. When someone says, how are you today? He'll say, yeah, really productive, because it breaks people's patterns and it affirms in his own mind that he's being productive. So for me, I'm trying to find more words like that. And excellent is a word I haven't really used much in the past with clients. It's always been, yeah, good or bad, essentially one or the other. So, I'll say not bad or good, basically. So I've been trying to find more words like that. So yeah, I've just noticed that's just the word I've stuck to recently is excellent.
Awesome. That is so cool. And maybe something that I say, and something that triggered me when I was younger, is that my cousin, when I was very little, he said, stop using the word good. And I was like, why? And he's like, try using different words. So from a very young age, like now I just say, I'm well, how are you? And it's like, and I am always well. Like I rarely ever get sick, but it's like, if productive works for you, or whatever kind of incantation that you want to use is almost the way that you can have a conversation. It's like, no, this is what I am and this is what I will be, and so it is, kind of thing. So what is the nicest and or most unexpected compliment or gift you've ever received?
Most unexpected. I guess this is probably the one that shocks me every time, and I'm starting to understand why to an extent, but it still rattles me every time. So people always say, like, when they're trying to guess my age or something, they'll say, "Oh, how old are you?" Like, 28, 29. I'm like, no, I'm 21. And people are like, "Are you serious?" Like, they can't even fathom that, I'm only 21. So but to me, I look like any other 21-year-old. I'll look in the mirror and go, like, I can't even grow a beard or anything like that, right? I can't change the way I look to potentially look older. Like, I feel like I look like a 21-year-old, and it's been the same since I was, 17, 18 years old too. So I remember being, when I started my job in my gap year, I was 18. So one of the managers, one day, she needed to know my age, and she goes, "What are you, 23, 24?" I was like, "No, I'm 18. She goes, "Are you serious?" So for me, that's something that I guess is a compliment, and I'm always just shocked when people think that I'm older than what I am. But when people actually guess that I'm 21, sometimes I'm a bit like, "Oh, I don't normally get that reaction." So I'm a bit, it's just like, "Oh, that person actually guessed right for the first time." So
screw you, we're not going to be friends. See you later.
That's it. So yeah, it just rattles me every time. I can't see how I project that from people, because to me, in terms of looks, I feel like I look like a 21-year-old. Maybe it's the way I speak or something, but at the same time, I feel like there's plenty of other people my age that speak the same. So I guess that's just my perception, but yeah, that's the one thing that always rattles me.
Isn't that interesting that you look at it that way? Because I would get the same thing, but I would view it as not a compliment. It would be like, no, like, see me as younger. And I think that was probably because people always thought that I was older than my sister. And it's like, I would almost get offended of like, no, like, I want to look like the younger sister. Whereas it was coming from a place of like, it's not a look thing. It's a mentality or maturity thing. And it's not saying she's not mature. It's just like, I imagine you are probably a pretty deep soul from a young age as well, where it's like you're talking to older people and you're having conversations with them like you're their age, and then they're like, "Oh, you're 20 years younger." Like, what the fuck? Like, how did we get here?
Yeah. That's it.
So it's such a cool trait to have, and that definitely comes across. Like, even I just go like, really? Like, are you that age? Like, I'm pretty sure I said it earlier as well. Of like, how are you even that age? Like, what's going on? It's so amazing, like, to speak with younger, conscious people. And it just goes to show how much of a shift there is in when you start hanging around people with similar interests, that you just go, oh, actually, there are more people that are doing these kinds of things. Because when you don't hang out in it, you go, nobody knows this shit. Like, nobody does this. And then you finally get into the pool of people where you speak in the same language, and it's pretty exciting. So
for sure.
So legendary Tom, where can people find you if they want to reach out or get your services for what you do in personal training and coaching?
Perfect. So you can check out my podcast, as you sort of mentioned before. So the SOTA Process podcast, so SOTA for SOTA. I'm on Instagram and Facebook and all of those places too. So you can find me at Instagram. The podcast related stuff is at the SOTA Process, and everything else, my just general life and, videos of me talking about different topics and fitness and health related stuff is at Tom Evans PT. So yeah, if you guys want to send me a message or anything like that, I'm always going to reply to everyone, unless you ask something really stupid, then I might not. But if you ask something, worth my time, I'll reply and help you guys out in any way that I can.
Oh, Tom, it has been like such a pleasure to connect with you initially over social media. I love seeing what you put out there, and then actually getting to see you on a flat screen, and then tomorrow even the more excitement of getting to see you in person. And I appreciate not only us going a bit over our hour that was scheduled, but just for being who you are, being open, vulnerable, and sharing as much as you can, because I know that everything that you spoke true to will add value to somebody, whether it's the listener or somebody that the listener knows. And I'm so grateful for you to pop on and just be all aboard. It's awesome.
Yeah, thank you very much. I've really enjoyed our chat today. So it's always good to have a platform like this to, yeah, share my story and my thoughts, and have the potential to help more people out and just inspire people to, through different ideas and things like that. And hopefully I've shared some things that some people can take away and implement into their own lives and start saving towards some Tony courses, I think.
I think so. It's a great recommendation. It's cool to have someone else kind of pump it out there and not just me, and they're like, you crazy lady, what are you doing now? It's like, no, Tom said it wasn't me.
Yeah, that's it. I
But-
feel the same.
and again, it comes across as like the people that you're passionate about. Like I left, I was just working at a little cafe job that I'm doing at the moment, and I was walking back to meet Josh because he was coming to pick me up, and I actually stopped in another little cafe, and I was chatting to the chick there, and I was like so passionate about like what I was sharing. It was just like about life, and she's like, what do you do? And I was like, this is what I do, this is what I love. She's like, that's sick, can I have your details? I was like, yeah, like these are the people that like, when you're actually truly passionate about what you do, you will draw in amazing people, and it won't feel so much like you want to hide in your shell and go, oh, just kind of keep it at like a middle level and not really get excited. It's like, no, I'm fucking pumped, like, and I'm going to be that crazy person. I don't care. Like somebody will join me.
Yeah, that's awesome. I love it.
Yeah. Cool. So I'll pop like a lot of what we spoke about in the show notes. I'll put in Tom's details where you can find him. I'll also put in some of the products that you use in terms of like the glasses and the little, I can't remember what the watch was for sleep, but Whoop.
So
Cool.
WHOOP.
Okay, cool. Awesome. And then, yeah, I'm sure we'll have you on for another episode to come, whether it's talking about sleep or just hanging out. It'll be awesome, dude.
Yeah, thank you very much. I've really enjoyed it.
Yay.